Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL. Today, we've got a full slate of updates to cover. This is the 94th episode of Hawks Latest presented by FanArt. So, we are almost at 100. It's been super fun covering the team, and we have just a little bit left of the offseason to go. But the Atlanta Hawks have really been the most unpredictable team in the NBA this entire offseason, and just when we thought their roster was complete, as we know, they traded Kobe Bufkin to the Brooklyn Nets. They pulled off another move that really shook up the conversation, and we don't know where they're going to go from here, but it's our job to speculate. So today we're going to break down Atlanta's bold roster risks, Dyson Daniels and his looming contract extension. It's not just Trae Young who's eligible for a contract extension right now, as we've all know and we've been talking about. Daniels is extension eligible as well, and that is something I expect to get done. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about why in just a little bit. So also some potential free agent additions, as a direct result of the Kobe Bufkin trade. Atlanta has that open roster spot. And there are two specific veterans who might not be, they might not fill that void of a traditional backup point guard. But on the wing and, as a big, these are two guys that I'm very intrigued in bringing in. So I'm going to break that down in a little bit. And also how a guy like Highsmith of the Brooklyn Nets actually could factor into Atlanta's plans as the trade deadline approaches well into next season. As well in the future, this is not a guy who can be traded until December, so that's not something that concerns us right now, but it is an interesting player who could be a Hawks target. So there's a lot to unpack here, and I know what's probably heavy on y'all's minds right now, and it's certainly heavy on mine, the whole Trae Young, Patrick Beverley beef. Unfortunately, that does not fit into all of our topics today, but best believe in next episode, I'm going to have a whole lot to say about that, as I'm sure you all expect. It's very interesting. It's really keeping us entertained in this last half of the offseason. So without further ado, let's waste no more time and go ahead and jump into it and talk about how on a quiet Monday afternoon, the Atlanta Hawks shocked fans and analysts alike by trading away their young promising guard Kobe Bufkin, who had showed flashes but never really brought it all together. They dealt him to the Nets for cash considerations. Bufkin, who, promising guy, he was drafted 15th overall in 2023. He was widely viewed as an investment piece for the future and someone who could eventually be a part of Atlanta's core. He never really saw the floor. It was just an awkward situation for Bufkin. But nonetheless, we wish him the best in his future endeavors. But the move itself did spark some polarizing reactions. Supporters of this trade argued Atlanta was right to move off of a player who was unlikely to crack the rotation this upcoming season. I mean, he was buried deep into that rotation, especially with the emergence of bigs like Mo Gay and drafting Asa Newell. Even them, like they are taking up a spot in that rotation that Kobe it was setting him to the very bottom of that depth chart. They questioned why the Hawks failed to extract even a second round pick in return. I mean, the return was just cash considerations. Just looking at it on paper, that doesn't seem like a good return, though. But the thing is, the Hawks kind of just wanted to move on from him. The biggest concern now, of course, is depth at backup point guard. Bufkin was just one of two traditional point guards on that roster, with the other one being Atlanta's franchise player, Trae Young. On the surface, it looks like Atlanta kind of left itself vulnerable, and that's kind of what everyone's immediate reaction was and why it was kind of met with more criticism than praise. But when you dig a little deeper, the team believes it already has capable playmakers to step into that role. And like I said, when you really look at the roster, I mean, it's something that is backed up with actual, guys that can play point guard. Luke Kennard, who signed this offseason on a 1-year, $11 million deal, has, for a long time been one of the NBA's most underrated secondary facilitators. I mean, he's not known for that role. He's known as one of the best three-point shooters in the league, but this is someone who can handle the ball and really, run some pick and roll sets. And he's not going to always have that load, but this is a guy who can certainly create some offense when needed. Dyson Daniels Daniels and Jalen Johnson, who were in the starting lineup last year and are going to be in the starting lineup again this year, obviously, they're also expected to take significant leaps from the coaching staff. And they expect them to really grow as playmakers, and with that increase in responsibility and increased role, just continue to get better with the ball in their hands and facilitating for their other teammates. And while Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Vit Krejci have less experience running an offense, their versatility is their strongest asset, and it's a reason why they are so valued by the Atlanta Hawks. It gives head coach Quinn Snyder different looks to test, but this is not a bad issue. Now it could eventually develop into a stronger issue when we get later into the season, and a lot of these teams that the Hawks are competing with will have experienced backup point guards. It's really all just going to depend on how they kind of gel together over the course of the season, and we'll know more as soon as we see them hit the floor. The season's quickly approaching. Still, though, this is just such a risk. Going into the season without a true backup point guard places heavy responsibility on Trae Young once again to remain healthy and on the wings to adapt quickly. Atlanta could explore free agency still for a stopgap option, perhaps, but for now, the message from the front office is clear that they seriously trust this roster, and they have good reason to. So, speaking of trust, Atlanta's own Dyson Daniels has quickly become one of the most important players the Hawks have had in a very long time. So they traded with the New Orleans Pelicans for Daniels last offseason. And it was something that was immediately met with criticism. Once again, these critics don't like the moves that the Hawks make, but they end up aging very well. I think the Bufkin deal will age well, but the Daniels trade certainly aged well. It was just DeJounte Murray for Daniels, Larry Nance Jr., and 2 first-round picks, 2 very valuable first-round picks, might I add. Once he got traded to Atlanta, he had an absolute breakout season where he averaged over 14 points, nearly 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and a wildly impressive 3 steals per game. Daniels should have won Defensive Player of the Year. I think y'all probably agree with me on that. I think Evan Mobley certainly did not deserve it. Even great player, great defensive player, certainly contributed big time on Cleveland's amazing regular season. But Daniels literally completely leaped everyone in deflections and steals, set so many records, and transformed this Atlanta defense from bottom of the league to middle of the league, which I think that is an impressive enough achievement on its own. So he ended up winning Most Improved Player, and I'm glad the NBA gave him some sort of credit for the historic season. But yeah, he should have won Defensive Player of the Year. He actually finished second in that voting. So Daniels' development was crucial in replacing DeJounte Murray's production. 2 very different players, but Atlanta still had a void to fill. They lost a lot of scoring, and Daniels filled into that role beautifully. He fits more naturally alongside Trae Young as well, and Jalen Johnson and the rest of the core. But now the Hawks face a pressing financial decision. Do they extend Dyson Daniels now, or do they wait until restricted free agency? He's eligible for extension now. He has been for quite a while. But here's the thing. On paper, Atlanta could afford to wait. There are some pros and cons with that. They hold Daniels restricted rights and could match any offer next summer. And let's say they end up not getting the extension done with Daniels this offseason and he does hit restricted free agency next summer. Atlanta would match any offer that came their way, but it kind of, gets them to a point where there are going to be a lot of teams with cap space next summer, and Daniels is going to get an absolute bag, and we don't want to end up having to pay Dyson Daniels over $40 million a year, because that is always a possibility. Like I said, delaying comes with that risk. He's easily in the $30 million per year conversation. I would gladly give Dyson $30 million a year. That might be a little controversial in its own, but multiple teams would be eager to pay him without hesitation, and the Hawks need to be careful of how they manage this situation. They're already facing very complex negotiations with their superstar point guard Trae Young, and we don't know exactly how that's going to end up. It's obvious Trae Young wants to be here for a long time, but Atlanta's made it very certain that they will not give him that max extension this offseason. They're going to play it out and see how he performs with this new look roster, which it's a smart move, but I do think that it will eventually get done, and Trae Young will re-sign and not hit free agency. Managing 2 tense extension situations simultaneously simultaneously could create unnecessary drama, not just in the locker room, but on the court. And, this franchise is really focused on winning. It's a very important season upcoming for the organization. Yeah, it's true that Daniels has had only one truly good season of play in his young career, but it was his first year with real minutes, and he showed what he can do. Many front offices would kind of let him prove it for another year before handing him over $100 million plus over several seasons. But this is not a typical scenario. This is a Hawks team that's in a very interesting position. They went all in this offseason while they didn't give up too much and risk too much of their future. They made moves that made it clear that they are trying to compete in the Eastern Conference. 4 of the top 8 playoff rotation players are not under contract beyond this year, which is a risk Atlanta's taking to win next year. Kristaps Porzingis and Luke Kennard both hit free agency next summer. They're both on 1-year deals. Kristaps isn't on an original 1-year deal. He's on that giant deal he signed with the Boston Celtics. But his contract's expiring after this upcoming season. Retaining both of them could be costly, and Atlanta needs to be careful with how they manage their depth. In that context, it makes sense to lock Daniels in. Now, at just 22 years old, he's already one of Atlanta's cornerstones and maybe the best defensive guard they've ever had. Delaying the extension would only introduce risk into a roster that's built to win immediately. If history's any guide, we may see a last-minute deal before opening night. Here's where it gets a little interesting. Atlanta did the exact same thing with Jalen Johnson last summer. A lot of people ended up being like, okay, they're probably not going to extend Jalen. They're going to see how he plays, if he can stay healthy, yada, yada, yada. And then like a night before opening night when they took on the Brooklyn Nets, like literally the day before that, they went ahead and gave Jalen Johnson that extension. It was that 5-year, $150 million contract that is going to look very good in about a year. If I were just giving my expert opinion, I would expect something similar to happen with Daniels in the next several weeks. I'm not saying this is going to happen tomorrow, but I would expect for a deal to get done with Daniels before the season starts. I don't think Atlanta is going to play too many games with this. They want to lock in Dyson Daniels for the long-term picture. So, the Bufkin trade, back onto that, it also freed up a roster spot and some money, which could be used on another addition. We don't know if Atlanta's going to be super aggressive in acquiring another player, but if they do, 2 names that we could potentially watch for, and these are kind of we talked about realistic candidates in the last episode. In this episode, this is a little more of a broad, this is kind of a reach, but 2 names that you could watch for are Malik Beasley and Al Horford. So especially Beasley. Now, it looks like Horford is going to Golden State once they finally resolve this Jonathan Kuminga situation, but Malik Beasley is very interesting. He's fresh off an impressive season in Detroit where he averaged over 16 points and shot a career-high 41.6% from 3. He remains unsigned after the gambling investigation, which ended up being false. It temporarily clouded his free agency, but it's behind him, and his value as a bench scorer is undeniable. He's coming off the best season of his career, and he was a huge contributor to Detroit's playoff success. I would be shocked if he didn't go back to Detroit, and Detroit didn't try everything they can to bring him back. But if he elects not to go back to Detroit, if I were Trae Young, I would give him a call because this is a guy who would fit right in with Atlanta's system and culture. His ability to provide instant offense and floor spacing and solid perimeter defense would make Atlanta's already elite perimeter shooting even more dangerous. I think he's a great fit, and I would love to, consider him for one of Atlanta's final roster spots. Then there's the former Hawk Al Horford, and like I've said, the veteran big man has been connected to Golden State since the very start of free agency. But if that situation doesn't materialize and the Kuminga deal and everything, a return to Atlanta could be a poetic conclusion to his Hall of Fame career. It's definitely the most unrealistic option that we have talked about in some time. But at age 39, Horford still offers spacing, intelligence, and championship experience, qualities that would make him invaluable on a contending young Hawks team. So neither player, like I said earlier in the video, neither of them fill the backup point guard void, but both would significantly strengthen Atlanta's depth and give them another weapon for the playoffs. If the Hawks are serious about maximizing this 1-year championship win window, and with their vets now, obviously they're trying to compete for several championships down the line with their young core. But in these moves that they made that didn't mess with the timeline at all, but just gives them an extra competitive edge. They're trying to win next year, so they do have kind of like a 1-year window with some of these guys, using that biannual exception, that $5 million, to sign a guy like Beasley, or maybe you shoot for the stars, and Al Horford could prove pivotal to this team. So another name to really monitor, and this is kind of when we're getting back to the more realistic guys, and this isn't something that would happen this offseason. I'll get to that in a second, but is Haywood Highsmith. Certainly monitor his situation in Brooklyn. So he's currently with the Nets after being traded from Miami. Highsmith is widely expected to be dealt again by February's trade deadline. It's not someone that can be moved this offseason. Last season, he proved to be a very reliable 3-and-D wing for the Miami Heat. I mean, that's kind of been the story of his career. Just reliable, underrated, and just he is who he is. He appeared in 74 games while shooting nearly 38% from deep. He guarded multiple positions effectively. He's at just $5.6 million on an expiring deal. He is the exact kind of low-cost, high-impact player playoff teams really need, and Atlanta is no different. And especially with our questions at backup wing. This is an option that I think would be very realistic. We'll see how it goes over the course of the season, and if Atlanta, notes that they have a legit problem behind Zachary Rizachet, maybe Vit Krejci slows down a little bit, and Nikhil isn't really playing the 3 too well. I mean, this is something that Atlanta could seriously consider. I think they'll be in the market for a backup small forward, and Haywood Highsmith would fit that mold perfectly. The complication is health, and while he was reliable last season, Highsmith actually recently suffered that torn meniscus during offseason workouts and is expected to miss 8 to 10 weeks. So there are questions that he'll even be healthy for opening night. Not that he would really play in Brooklyn, but nonetheless, if he returns at full strength, though, his trade value could seriously spike, and he'll be one of the top trade targets at the deadline for any NBA team. He's an intriguing midseason target, so with Atlanta lacking true wing depth, Highsmith could be that perfect fit, especially with the Hawks, especially if they prefer to wait until midseason before making another roster move, because that is always a possibility. Until then, they could probably just, sign some of their, maybe upgrade Keaton Wallace from a two-way to a standard deal, and then just fill out the roster from there. But keep an eye on December 15th, because that is the date he becomes eligible to be traded again, per NBA rules, since he was traded from the Heat to the Nets in the offseason already. He cannot be traded again until December 15th. So that's when the rumors could really pick up, and it'll be from that to February's trade deadline, where it could get really interesting, because the NBA trade deadline gets crazy at times, as we saw last offseason when Luka Doncic got traded to the LA Lakers. So where does this all leave Atlanta? They've taken a bold gamble by trading away their only true backup point guard. They're navigating a critical extension with Dyson Daniels, who might just be the key to this team's long-term success. They have the flexibility to add veteran free agents, like maybe a guy like Malik Beasley or Al Horford, and they could be in the mix for Haywood Highsmith down the line. I wouldn't be surprised. That's a very realistic target to me. So the overarching theme is this: if the Hawks are not afraid, the Hawks are not afraid to take risks. And in a wide-open Eastern Conference, their aggressive approach could be the difference between another middling season and a deep playoff run. I'm starting to lean towards deep playoff run. How do you guys feel? So that is going to wrap up today's episode of Hawks Latest. If you guys enjoyed today's breakdown, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update here on the channel. We're going to be pumping out videos every single day, keeping you guys informed on the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. But just let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about maybe Malik Beasley or Haywood Highsmith at the deadline? And give me your thoughts on the Kobe Bufkin trade, just, now that we've had a few days to process it, and, him actually going to Brooklyn. And then also, we didn't talk about it a lot today in today's episode, but let me know your thoughts on the Trae Young, Patrick Beverley beef. We'll have a full breakdown of that next episode, so y'all aren't going to want to miss that. I've got a lot to say about it, but once again, I'm Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time.